Hey, this is Stuart Wright for Pass and Move, giving his preview of Norwich versus Liverpool, or 50 Stew, as I'm always referred to in the actual podcast. What have we got? We've got in 7 days we've been beaten by Man United and we've beaten West Brom, but highlights would be the continuing starring role of Glenn Johnson as one of our best players. I think the United game showed the rise of some form for Steven Gerrard, and let's be honest, Thursday was evidence and real promise that what Liverpool may or may not grow into is very promising. It's ridiculous, really, and we've been told by the press, this is the worst start for 101, 2 years, whatever it is. And yeah, I'm speaking to fans who are excited by the prospect of what we've got at Liverpool. So, which I guess the twist to that is that in reality, this Norwich game is a must-win game, and must-win games bring pressure. I just hope that pressure doesn't sort of stifle the burgeoning understanding of what Brendan Rodgers wants Liverpool to play like. And I, for one, having watched the young boys game now, thinking that was like a training session. The West Brom game was like putting that into practice. And let's be honest, they went behind in both those games and came back to win. So there's some character there that is to make us all hopeful. The fact we're in the bottom three is neither here nor there, because Tottenham and Arsenal were shite this time last year. So we can only get better, and I think what it looks like to me is that Rodgers is getting his message home, and players that like Steven Gerrard that we'd hope would rise to the occasion are doing that. Must-win game, but for me, no pressure. You'll never walk alone. That's me, 50 Stew for Pass and Move.
Matrix, Sean McGurdy. I'm with weareliverpool.co, and welcome to the Pass and Move Norwich pre-game extravaganza, I believe we're calling it. Now, I'm a little low on the details. Now, this is the disco room here in Sydney, and I've had some help setting it all up, but this is the second or third time we've tried this, so it's starting to get dark. Let's try and get this in before the game. Okay, so you'll have to forgive me. All the numbers I'm looking at are just below the camera, so I'm not being rude, I'm just trying to make less mistakes than usual. Now, Daniel and I covered this sort of detail in the Blue Pill. Hi Daniel, hoping things are, please don't laugh too hard. Yes, we go into more detail there. We'll try and get through this as quickly as we can. Now, we get our data from a number of sources, regular sources, and we're not reproducing these numbers, but we really recommend you get in there and support these sites who do all this work. The one I use the most, and I think these guys are fantastic, is probably whoscored.com. They do some terrific work. Please go in there if you've got any interest in stats or the level of detail that I'm going through now. Please check out their stuff. The next thing is the 442 app which uses the Opta data. It has some really interesting heat graphs and passing data. So if you're of a mind, it's not expensive. Really want to support the guys who do all this great work. And then additionally, there's free data that you can get from places like LiverpoolFC.com. That's also got back-ended by I think Scout 7 and some of the Opta stuff as well. So in any case, armies of nerds out there chugging away on calculators, and a lot of it's free. You just need to know where to find it. Hi, Manny. So let's have a look at the history of what's coming up and what to expect. So in the last 4 times that we've met them, we've beat them. We've won 3 out of 4 games, and we've outscored them 9-2. So if we're in a situation where we want to start scoring some goals, then these are definitely the guys that we want to be playing. I think in the last 2 games I'm reading here that we've outscored them 5-1. So if it's going to start raining goals, then hoping it starts this weekend. So you don't want to be hearing this, but this is really a battle for 17th place. They're 17th, we're 18th. They have an extra point on us because they've had 3 draws rather than 2. So Yeah, there's no glamour here, folks. We're trying to stabilise after a tough first 5 games. Now, if we go into the characteristics for the teams, concentrating on Norwich, they're supposed to be good at aerial duels. They're supposed to be good at protecting a lead, which is curious because they've only scored 2 goals all year, so they haven't had too much opportunity to be protecting a lead. But apparently, when they do it, they're ace. They boss it. Okay. Now, weaknesses for Norwich play towards some of our strengths. They are bad at holding the ball, which is great because we love taking the ball from people. They are bad at fouling in dangerous areas, and it sounds like us. They're bad at defending against long shots, and we take lots of long shots. They're bad at defending through ball attacks, and we've got people like Sterling and Suarez who want to run at you all day, so that's all good news. And they're really terrible at finishing scoring chances, which is interesting because I believe we have the same weakness at the moment. Okay, now if we want to typify the style of play for Norwich, they like to attack down the right-hand side. They take a lot of shots. They fire a lot of long balls. They do a lot of crossing. Now we'll talk about that in a sec. They like to play with width, but that's nothing unusual because everybody who plays against us at the moment plays with width. They play the offside trap. Now that's interesting, but we'll talk about that too. And they have a consistent first 11, which is a bit of a problem for us at the moment because we've got injuries to important people. So you can see that this is going to be interesting. There could be some high-level catastrophes. It won't be boring. I'm not expecting it's going to be boring in the least. Now, if we look at the overall per-game stats for each of the teams, they're looking really similar for the most part. We give more yellow cards than they do. Same number of fouls, same number of throw-ins. Aerial duels are the same. Ball possession is interesting. Now, they retain 45% of the ball. We like to retain 56%. Now, that doesn't sound like too much. I mean, that's only about 11%. But 11% against 45% is about 20%. Did I even think that was a good idea saying that? Anyway, what it means is that they lose the ball 20% more often than we do. So yeah, that has to be a good thing. Now, despite all the things I've mentioned, they actually have a higher average rating than we do. I'm trying to figure out how that's possible. There's really not too much of a difference. They have a rating of 6.6 and we have a rating of 6.5. Now, the analysis we've done previously says that we need about a 6.8 if we want 4th place, and the best teams in the league get to about 7.1. So you can see that we have an awful lot of improving to do. Now, the ratings are largely dictated by scoring goals. If we can get some goals into the games in the next couple of weeks, that'll be some really good news, obviously. So, we've scored 4 goals. They've scored 2. Both of their goals are from open play. We also have another 2 from set pieces. And now, here's the first part of the really interesting stuff. Norwich are heavily biased to the right-hand side. In their last 2 games, they've attacked through the middle and the right-hand side. Against Newcastle, West Ham United, they went through the middle and the right-hand side. Against Norwich against Norwich. Against Newcastle, they went pretty dominantly down the right-hand side. So, whereas we are roughly 33% through the middle, the right, and the left, Norwich are 44% on the right-hand side, and almost all of that is subtracting from the left. So you should be expecting that most of the attack that's coming from Norwich is coming down the right-hand side. Now, we look at a stat from 442 called pass combinations. And what's really interesting about the Newcastle game as far as the pass combinations are concerned is that of the top 15 pass combinations on the field, all of the Norwich ones involved Martin. All of them. So here I was raving about Kelly, who's unfortunately injured now, but all of the pass combinations that he appeared in for us last week, and sure enough, Martin was doing exactly the same thing for Norwich. So we have a very good pressing midfield who are good at keeping their feet. Well, we are now. That has probably gone up with Shelby and his whole party trick thing. But in any case, if we can keep our feet and get the ball away from Martin, there's an extremely high probability they won't be able to press us on the left-hand side of the field. So we should do fairly well getting the ball back off them on halfway. Now, getting back to the Norwich attacking style, when they progress down the right-hand side, they don't actually score their goals from the right-hand side. They score their goals from the left. So what we should be expecting is progression of the ball with Martin down the right-hand side, for example, and then a cross to come across the box, and a shot on goal from distance, either in front or on the left-hand side if they were Norwich. Okay, so they kind of, from your perspective, they come up. If you were Norwich, you'd see them come up this part of the field. They come across in front of goal, and then the shot's in on this side. That's terrible. I don't know why I'm doing that at all. But it's really distinctive. They do it again and again and again. So now we get into the individual player stats, and this is why we use the ratings, because the ratings help break down the success of the team into individual players. And as mentioned, we're very big on players that get to about a 6.8. Now, if we look at the players above 6.8 from the two teams combined, something jumps out at you. Firstly, we have 3 of the top 4. Gerrard, Sterling and Suarez are all sitting at 7.5, 7.1 and 7.1. So this is all good news, and it's all attacking as well. The bad news, though, is that Norwich have Snodgrass, Johnson, Barnett, Martin, and Johnson. They have 2. No, Glenn Johnson is ours, but yes. So sorry, start again. Norwich have 4 players who are above 6.8. Now, the 4 players that they have above 6.8 are Snodgrass, who is their right winger, I guess you'd say. Then the centre midfielder in Bradley Johnson, and then 2 defensive guys, Martin, as I mentioned, on the right-hand side, and Barnett, who plays in the middle. So you can assume that Norwich aren't necessarily a team that's getting good. Aren't necessarily a team that's good at getting the ball forward, and a bunch of their work rate is in the centre midfield and on the right hand side. So I'm thinking whoever's playing wing for us on the right hand side is probably going to do okay. Yes, that'll be interesting. Okay, so now if we break away from that and we just get into the activity heat maps from 442, really interesting numbers here, because Newcastle were able to shut them down in the middle of the field with Gabaye and Williamson. Norwich's main strength was distributed between Johnson, Howson and Martin across the middle, and they were largely feeding Snodgrass on the right hand side. And if we look at the passing, I'd say a third of Norwich's total passes on the field all took place on the right wing, just over halfway. Almost every pass they attempted through the middle of the field was long and failed, and I think they took the ball on the left-hand side of the field 3 times in 45 minutes. If we look at the second half, we see a little more diversification. We see the same activity on the right-hand side, but then additionally there's also some stuff going right through the middle of the field. But once again, most of the forward balls on the left-hand side just completely failed. So, interesting. If we play a possession-based game, we steal the ball from their midfield, this could be quite an interesting one. Of course, we're away, so that's the thing that worries me more than anything else. 2/3 of all away teams fail, irrespective of whether they're stronger than the opposition or not. So I'd really rather we straighten out our home form, but still, it should be interesting. I think some of the senior team is probably going to get a bit of a wake-up call with the kids beating West Brom. So hopefully Suarez can get a little more focused. I think some long balls out of Suarez from in front of goal would be really good. I'm actually hoping Barini cuts loose if he's playing. I'm not sure if he's over his ankle. Anyway, hopefully that's not too much detail. Hopefully the accent's not too hard to understand talking that fast. Appreciate you having me. Any feedback is welcome, and thank you so much for your time. Okay.
Hi, this is Moose. Welcome to Pass and Move, the preview bit. If somebody else has already said hi, I'm really sorry. Anyway, this is my bit. This is my thoughts on the upcoming clash of the tight ones at the bottom of the league. It's us versus Norwich at Carrow Road. Norwich are a team in transition, not unlike Liverpool themselves, with highly respected Chris Hughton taking on the stellar work that Paul Lambert did to get their Canaries into their Premiership. Norwich sit one place above Liverpool in the league, but both are without a win this season. The Yellows were smashed 5-0 by Fulham on the opening day, and the Canaries followed that up with a 1-1 draw with QPR. They then managed a fairly credible 1-1 draw at Spurs, and then a 0-0 at home to West Ham followed in what most people have said has been one of the most boring Premier League games in history. Then they had a 1-0 loss away to Newcastle, which again is not an unrespectable result. This is obviously sees them in less than convincing form, but they do play host to the Reds this week. As for us, I'd like to see the following side if available. Rayner in goal, Johnson at right back, Skirtle, Daniel Agger if fit, if not for me to be Quartez partnering him. I'm a bit of a loss for left back. I'm not sure if Wisdom's actually registered for the EPL, but Enrique, Downing, a Cone, a Dustbin, a bloke from the crowd, anything will do really. A midfield trio of Allen, Gerrard and for me Suso, who I think has been a bit of a revelation, and a front three of Sterling, Suarez and a Saidi. This allows us to drop to a 4-5-1 and puts an awful lot of pace in the side. Norwich away from home have been playing a 4-4-1-1 and a 4-4-2 at home, so I think our formation is more than capable of coping with everything they've got to offer really. Carrow Road, strange ground, strange place, normally has drunken TV chefs on the middle of it screaming out, "Let's be having you." Well, let's hope we're not having any of them this weekend. We've only won there in 9 attempts from 24 games historically, but we haven't lost at Norwich since 1993 when we went down 1-0. The Canaries have been out of the limelight for a great deal of the time in between, so we haven't really played them that much. Yet last year, of course, we won 3-0 at their ground, with Suarez scoring his fantastic hat-trick and his superlative goal from the halfway line being the real pick of the bunch. Well, I think boosted by the West Brom win in the Cup midweek and the rest given to key players, I think I can see a 2-goal victory to the Reds. Our failure to keep a clean sheet is quite worrying. In fact, Pepe hasn't kept a clean sheet since he wiped his cock on the curtains. So either 2-0 or possibly 3-1. But yeah, I think a Reds win is on the cards. Thank you very much for putting up with another bit of pass and move. See you next week.
So Moose has asked me to give you my thoughts about the Norwich match before the Norwich match. I was supposed to be inventive about where I'm doing it, and I haven't been. It's in my bedroom, or it's my soon-to-be not bedroom because we're moving house next week. Very quickly then, I'm just really excited about this game. There's some interesting choices just about who starts. I thought the West Brom game was maybe more exciting about the Liverpool team than I've been for a long, long time. So I will hopefully carry on that excitement as we face the might of Norwich. I've been listening to Alan Partridge in the car on the way back from Liverpool actually today, so I'm right in the mood. My team will be Rayner, of course, and defensively, if Agger's fit, I'll go with Agger. If Agger's not fit, I'll go with Quartez, because Carragher just again the other night looked very slow. With Skirtle, obviously, I'm going to move Johnson to left back, and I'm going to play Wisdom at right back because, frankly, Enrique has been dreadful for half of last season and the games he's played so far. I don't think he's done enough to get his place back. I toyed with the idea of putting Downing at left back, but I still want to punish him for being Downing. And then I also thought about Robinson, who was really impressive against West Brom. But for me, Wisdom has been the most impressive of the young players in the Euro Disney in the Milk Cup. So I want to promote him to the Premier League team. Midfield, I'm going to go for Gerrard and Allen, obviously. And then I'm going to go for obviously Shelby out because of his unjust red card. I don't know. Are we arguing about that? I don't know whether we're just going to take it or not. I don't think there's any choice. We've just got to play Henderson. I don't think there's any choice there. And then up front, stroke midfield, I'm going to go for Sterling and Suarez, obviously. Sterling, 17-year-old, and is a permanent fixture now. I don't know whether Barini's fit. There's talk that he may well be, but to be honest with you, he's not been doing it for me. And Asaidi, I'm sure that's pronounced wrong, was brilliant the other night, and he was pretty impressive the previous game he played. So I start with him. He, for me, was of the attacking players, was the pick of the attacking players, although Pacheco I thought was brilliant as well in that slightly more withdrawn role, so possibly we'll have an eye on him. Again, Sahin and Suso, both of whom I think have done well. I just don't think they are physically up to it yet. I don't think they do enough work. But you know, obviously, it's all there to all to see. They're a quality unit, both of them. So I'd definitely have Pacheco on the bench, and then Sahin and maybe Suso as well. Yesil, I really liked, but he's obviously incredibly raw. But he's a selfish little bugger, and I quite like that. But he, again, I don't know whether he's quite ready yet. But I'm really looking forward to the Norwich game. It's really weird. I wrote this on the Facebook pages that even though it's our worst start since the beginnings of football, since the Ice Age, I don't think I've been more excited about a Liverpool team ever. So I'm really looking forward to it. To the heart of Radio Norwich, and I hopefully we'll be in a triumphant mood on Monday. I hope you enjoy the game, and we'll speak to you soon. Cheers, bye.